I kept the folder in the third drawer of my desk at work, behind the hanging files for Q3 reports and expense reimbursements. Nobody ever went in that drawer. It was the boring drawer. That was the point. Inside it, a printed copy of my brother's lease agreement where I was listed as co-signer, a savings account statement showing the $14,000 I'd transferred over 18 months to help him get back on his feet. A screenshot of the text he sent me the night before my promotion dinner, the one where he said he was proud of me, that I deserved it, that he'd be there with bells on. I read that text 3 times the morning of the dinner. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to believe it. Maybe after 31 years of being his sister, I still hadn't learned. Let me back up. My brother Theo is 4 years older than me. Growing up, he was the one our parents worried about in the way parents worry about the child they think is fragile. He wasn't fragile. He was just loud about his problems in a way I never was, and loud problems I learned early get more attention than quiet ones. My parents aren't bad people. I want to be clear about that because what comes later might make them sound like they are. They're not. They just had a system, and the system was, Theo needs help, Lee handles herself. Lee is the responsible one. Lee is fine. I was fine for a long time. I got through college on scholarships and a part-time job at a copy center. I graduated, moved to Charlotte, got a job in corporate finance at a mid-sized logistics company, worked my way up, made myself useful. The kind of useful that gets noticed. 3 months before the dinner, my manager called me into her office and told me I was being promoted to Director of Financial Planning at 31. It came with a significant salary bump, a team of 5 reporting to me, and the kind of title that actually means something in our industry. I called my mom first. She cried. She said she always knew. She said we had to celebrate. The dinner was her idea, a family dinner at Embers, which is the nicest restaurant in my parents' part of Raleigh. Not the cheapest place, not the most expensive, but the kind where you make a reservation a week out and they fold your napkin into a swan. My mom made the reservation. She invited my dad, my Aunt Connie, and Theo. Theo at that point had been living in an apartment 40 minutes outside the city for about 8 months. I'd co-signed his lease because his credit score was, in his words, a work in progress. His previous landlord had something different to say about that, but I didn't press. I also covered 2 months of his rent when he said his freelance graphic design work had dried up. He paid me back once. Partial. I didn't go into that dinner angry at him. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I genuinely wasn't. I was actually in a good mood. The kind of good mood that feels a little fragile because you're not used to things going well and you're half waiting for the catch. We got there first, my parents and me. Aunt Connie arrived 7 minutes later, smelling like her signature vanilla perfume, grabbing my face with both hands and telling me I looked like a CEO already. I laughed. I felt good. Theo came in 15 minutes after that. He had a woman with him I didn't recognize, tall, dark hair, wearing a dress that was nicer than anything I owned. He introduced her as a friend. He didn't give her name right away. She was Renata, I found out later. He'd been seeing her for 2 months. This matters. Stay with me. We sat down. We ordered drinks. My dad gave a little toast, the kind my dad gives, short and a little stilted because he's not a words person, but sincere. He said he was proud of me. My mom teared up again. Aunt Connie clinked glasses too enthusiastically and nearly knocked over the breadbasket. Theo was quiet through most of it. I noticed, but I didn't dwell. He gets quiet sometimes when the attention is on someone else. I thought I understood that about him. I thought I'd understood that about him. I thought I'd made peace with it. Then the entrees came. I don't remember exactly what triggered it. I think my mom mentioned my salary. Not the number, just that it was significant. And Renata asked what I did, and I explained, and she said something like, "Wow, director at 31? That's impressive." And she looked at Theo when she said it. Not in a mean way. Just the way people look at the person they came with when someone else gets a compliment. Theo put down his fork. "She's always been the golden one," he said. Not to Renata. To the table. Since we were kids. Lee gets the grades, Lee gets the job, Lee gets the job. Lee gets the dinner. My mom said his name. Just his name, the way she always said it, like a warning she didn't actually intend to follow through on. "I'm just saying," he said. "It's a pattern. And nobody ever wants to talk about it." My dad said, "Theo, this isn't the time." "When is the time?" Theo said, "Louder now." not yelling, but loud enough that the couple at the table next to us looked over. When has it ever been the time? She got tutors. She got the car when she turned 16. She got every opportunity and I got told to figure it out. This was not accurate. But I didn't say that. I sat there with my hands in my lap, and I felt the good mood drain out of me like water out of a tub. Aunt Connie said, carefully, "Honey, tonight is about Lee." "That's exactly my point," Theo said. He was looking at me now. His jaw was tight. "Everything is always about Lee." Renata put her hand on his arm. He didn't shake it off, but he didn't soften either. My mom looked at me with this expression I knew well. The one that said, "Please don't make this worse. Please just let it go. Please just be the bigger person one more time." And something inside me went very still. I thought about the folder in the third drawer. I didn't say anything at the restaurant. I'm telling you this up front because I want you to understand. What came later wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a reaction. It was a decision. There's a difference. I excused myself to the restroom after a few minutes. Stood at the sink and looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment. My hair was done. I was wearing the blazer I'd bought specifically for that week, for photos and meetings and this dinner. I looked like someone who had earned something. I went back to the table. Theo had settled down, or, more accurately, the table had settled around him the way it always did, everyone adjusting their behavior slightly to manage his mood. My dad was telling a story about something at work. My mom was refilling her water glass. Renata was eating her salmon. Normal. As if. The rest of the dinner was pleasant on the surface. We ordered dessert. Someone took a photo. My mom posted it to Facebook with a caption about being proud. In the photo, I'm smiling. I look fine. That night, I drove home, made a cup of tea, opened my laptop, and started pulling up documents. The lease co-sign agreement was actually the simpler piece. I called the property management company the next morning, Friday, and asked what my options were as a co-signer who wanted to remove myself from the agreement. The woman I spoke to was very matter-of-fact about it. Theo had 30 days, she said. If he wanted to stay in the unit, he'd need to qualify on his own or find a new co-signer. She sent me the paperwork by end of day. The savings I'd lent him? $14,200 total. I'd been loose about. No formal agreement. My own fault. I know that. But I had all the Venmo and Zelle receipts and I had his texts acknowledging the loans, calling them loans, promising to pay back. I forwarded everything to a friend of mine who does family law and asked her, casually, what my options were if I wanted to formalize a repayment demand. She said send a certified letter with a specific repayment timeline. Under $15,000, small claims court was always an option if it came to that. I sent the letter the following Monday. Return receipt requested. I also called my credit card company and removed Theo as an authorized user on the card I'd added him to temporarily 14 months prior. I didn't call Theo. I didn't text him. I didn't explain. He called me on Wednesday. I got a letter, he said. No hello. I know, I said. Lay. He paused. I could hear him breathing. What is this? It's a repayment request for the money I lent you. The terms are in the letter. You're serious? Yes. Another pause. Then, because of dinner? You're doing this because of dinner? And I thought about how to answer that. I thought about it carefully. The way I've thought about most things in my life while Theo moved through the world assuming that things would work themselves out, that someone would catch him. That the catch would be me. No, I said. I'm doing this because the arrangement wasn't working. I should have formalized it from the beginning. That's not Lee. I have until the end of the month on the lease. I know. The management company will be in touch with your options. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, Mom's going to be so upset. Probably, I said. He hung up. My mom called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. She said she didn't understand what was happening, that Theo was beside himself, that she wished I had talked to her first. Her voice had that particular quality it gets when she's hurt and wants you to know it without saying it directly. I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I made dinner. The thing about growing up as the responsible one is that it becomes a cage you build yourself, stone by stone, because every time you act responsible, someone hands you another stone and says, here, you're so good at this. You carry the stones. You build the walls. And eventually you're standing inside something you constructed yourself, and you have no idea how to explain to anyone else why you feel trapped. Because look how sturdy the walls are. Look how well built. I had been carrying Theo's stones for years, not because anyone forced me. Because I loved him and because it felt like the right thing to do and because every time I helped, there was a moment. Brief, sometimes just a few seconds, where he looked at me like I was the only solid thing in his life. And I think I needed that. I think I let myself need it more than I should have. That dinner cracked something open. It wasn't what he said exactly. It wasn't even that he said it in front of Renata, or at a nice restaurant, or on the night I was supposed to be celebrating. It was the look on my mom's face, that reflexive, automatic, please absorb this, lay, and the realization that it had been there my whole life, and I had always absorbed it, and he had always known I would. The week after I sent the letter was uncomfortable. My mom and I had a long, difficult phone call on Saturday. She said she thought I was being harsh. I said I thought I'd been too lenient for too long. She said Theo was struggling. I said I knew. She said he needed support. I said I'd been his primary support for almost 2 years and it hadn't helped him or me. She went quiet for a while. Then she said, I know we've put a lot on you over the years. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to one I'd gotten in 31 years, and I'll be honest. I cried after I hung up. Not because I was sad, exactly. Because something had shifted, and I didn't know yet what it was becoming. Theo found a new co-signer. A college friend. He texted me 3 weeks later to tell me, in a tone I can only describe as informational, no warmth, no hostility. Just, found someone to replace you on the lease. FYI, I said, thanks for letting me know. Please set up a payment plan for the loan when you have a moment. He didn't respond to that part. Aunt Connie called me a month after the dinner. She'd heard the whole thing from my mom by then, she said, and I'm quoting her directly because I wrote it down. I've been watching your brother take from you for years and I didn't say enough. I'm sorry for that. Then she asked if I wanted to come visit her in Asheville for a long weekend, said she'd make her green chili chicken and we'd sit on the porch and not talk about any of this unless I wanted to. I went the following month. She made the chicken. We sat on the porch. We talked about it some, and then we talked about other things, and it was the most normal I'd felt since the dinner. The repayment situation is ongoing. I've received 2 payments from Theo, neither on schedule, both smaller than the agreed amount, both accompanied by explanations I didn't ask for. My friend says I have a solid small claims case if I want to pursue it. I haven't decided yet. What I have decided, I'm not a co-signer anymore. I'm not an authorized user source. I'm not the person whose good mood can be counted on to survive my brother's need to cut something down when he feels small. I'm the director of financial planning at a logistics company in Charlotte. I have a team. I have a title. I have a savings account that is entirely mine, and a folder in a drawer at work that I'm thinking about cleaning out soon, because what's in it has done its job. My mom and I are okay. Better than okay. Some leaks. She's been more careful since that phone call, more conscious of the ask, of the assumption. Maybe it's age. Maybe the conversation actually landed. I don't know. I'll take it. Theo and I are at a distance. Not no contact. Just distance. We text sometimes. We'll probably be at the same table at Christmas, and it'll be strange and we'll manage. He hasn't apologized for the dinner. I'm not waiting for it anymore, which is a different kind of peace than I expected. But peace is peace. What I'll tell you is this. The thing I actually learned, the thing that doesn't fit into a clean ending, removing yourself from someone's financial life, is not the same as giving up on them. I used to think it was. I used to think that if I stopped catching him, I was the one who let him fall. But I'd been catching him for years and he kept falling anyway. And every time I broke the fall, I also broke a little of the space I needed to build my own life. The dinner was embarrassing. It was unfair. It was the kind of thing that sits in you for weeks and comes up at weird times, when you're in the shower, when you're driving, when someone at work mentions their sibling and your face does something involuntary. But it was also the thing that finally made me open that third drawer, and what I found in there was not just paperwork. It was clarity. I keep the drawer clear now. Q3 reports, expense reimbursements, a takeout menu from the Thai place down the street that I keep meaning to throw away. Nothing in there that belongs to anyone else. I've thought a lot about cause and effect since that dinner at Embers. Not in a dramatic way, just the quiet, practical way you start thinking when you finally stop running from something you've been avoiding for years. Theo didn't ruin my promotion dinner because he's a bad person. I actually don't think he is. He did it because for 31 years, the system around him taught him that his discomfort was everyone else's emergency. Every time my parents smoothed things over, every time my mom looked at me with that face, the one that said, please just absorb this, and every time I absorbed it, we all reinforced the same lesson. Theo's feelings take up the most space in the room, and Lee will make herself smaller to accommodate them. That's not cruelty, that's just a pattern nobody examined closely enough. The hard thing about being the responsible one is that it feels like a compliment until you realize it's actually a job description nobody hired you for and nobody's paying you to do. I was good at managing, so I managed. I was good at holding things together, so I held. And somewhere along the way, I started confusing being needed with being valued, and those are not the same thing at all. What I did, removing myself from his lease, sending the repayment letter, cutting the card. It wasn't punishment. I want to be honest about that because I think it's easy to frame it that way and miss the actual point. It was the first time in my adult life I asked myself, what would I do here if I weren't afraid of being seen as the one who gave up on him? And the answer was clear. The intelligence part, the part I'm most proud of, is that I waited. I didn't flip the table at Embers. I didn't call him that night. I went home, I made tea, and I thought it through. I looked at the actual numbers, the $14,200, the 18 months, the partial repayments, and I treated it the way I'd treat any financial situation at work, clearly, without the guilt clouding the math. That took a certain kind of guts I didn't know I had until I needed it. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, where you do the thing that's right for you even though you know it's going to be uncomfortable for a while, and you do it anyway, and you sit with the discomfort instead of fixing it at your own expense. My Aunt Connie said something on her porch in Asheville that I keep coming back to. She said she'd watched me give and she hadn't said enough about what she was seeing. I appreciated the honesty. But here's what I've realized since. I also hadn't said enough. Not to Theo, not to my parents, not to myself. I kept the peace so consistently that everyone, including me, forgot I was allowed to have needs that mattered too. The cause was years of unchecked imbalance. The effect was a dinner table in Raleigh where my brother felt entitled to make my night about his grievances. But the second effect, the one that actually changed something, was me finally deciding that I wasn't going to be the solution to a problem I didn't create. Lee at 31 is a director. She has a team, she has a drawer at work that's finally clear. That's not the ending I would have written at 25. But it's the one I earned.